35 with 8 seconds to go.
Any guest calling into the Rob Dibble Show does so via the Bobby V's and Sports Tech Hotline.
Got that feeling!
And now, here's Rob Dibble.
And there's your 2022-23 football season as it comes to a close. Hell of a game. I guess if Butker doesn't miss the first field goal, he hits the last field goal, and he's all that stuff's forgotten by hitting the upright. But great game. Hate that it was decided by an official's flag, but in the end, the Eagles were good with it. You know, obviously you don't want to lose, but the guy responsible for the hold said, "Listen, I held them. They caught me, and that's that." And but as far as the football game, I thought it was a fantastic football game for Super Bowls. I mean, you have to wait 2 weeks for that. Then you had to wait extra time where they sing 15 national anthems. Do a bunch of pageantry just to kind of suck the life out of the game before it even starts a little bit more. But once the game got going, I thought it was a great game.
Yeah, an amazing game, an amazing finish, except for the refs getting in the way. It's just bothersome. The officials have been all over this football season. I mean, their fingerprints are all over it in a game that I thought was really a well-officiated game where they're letting everything go and did not see any holding calls, whether it be defensive or offensive. Saw a couple before the final 2 minutes that were questionable. It was like, you know what? We'll let that go, and I like how they're letting them play football. And then at the very end, the Super Bowl, the last game, it's tied. I mean, this is the epitome of swallowing the whistle is this moment. So many times where I've been at games where it'd be high school or Pop Warner or even college, where like, you can't make that call. And then they're like, well, what? This isn't the Super Bowl. Well, this is the Super Bowl. And that was the worst time you could possibly change the way that you have been officiating the entire game. And I understand Bradbury said that he grabbed him a little bit or admitted that it was a hold. Got away with one earlier. They didn't get away with one this time. I understand that. Would it have totally changed the outcome? Maybe, maybe not. It would have just been nice. A little cherry on top of what was a great game to allow 2 minutes, maybe a minute 30, I don't know, 3-4 plays instead of just one play for Jalen Hurts and the Eagles to try to come back and kick a field goal at least. But I feel for Jalen Hurts, man. I feel like no one has been through a football fire quite like Jalen Hurts. And I was thinking he's going to come out the other side and be totally victorious, standing on top of the mountain of all of football. But no, he's got to wait. And Patrick Mahomes continues to show his dominance. I think Andy Reid continues to show his dominance. It reminds me a lot of you Patriot fans should be getting used to Kansas City if you know what you guys were working with back then. Great head coach mixed with a great quarterback and a great tight end as a safety valve spells success for a long, long time.
I don't know how Eric Bieniemy doesn't get a head coaching job. I mean, those wide open passes that Mahomes got, that basically solidified the game and made him the MVP, that wasn't him. Those were the calls that were coming from the sidelines. And I think Bieniemy does an amazing job. The offensive scheming, making the type, not adjustments, but running the plays that they felt that they could beat and suck in the safety who would follow the tight end across, and he'd get sucked out of that play twice, not once, twice. They did it on the right side, a fake left, go right, wide open. Did it on the left side, fake to the right, wide open on the left. So the fact that the Eagles got sucked in and they have such a good defense, everybody questioned, who they played at the end of the season. I don't think it matters. I think Jalen Hurts is a top 5 quarterback in this league. I thought he played a great game, threw for over 300 yards. Just the one faux pas was the fumble, and it could happen to anybody. He was switching hands to try to run on the outside, which is something you teach kids when they're very little, that if you're going to run to the outside, switch the ball from the inside to the outside. He fumbled it. He ran for 70 yards. He was almost the best runner in the game. Pacheco had 76 yards on 15 carries. Hurts had 70 yards on 15 carries, and he tied a Super Bowl record Terrell Davis set as a running back with 3 rushing touchdowns. But other than that, I mean, I thought the game was great. When you can play pretty much a clean game, I thought the hitting was as tough as I've ever seen in a football game. I mean, it took me back to like the 80s with the Chicago Bears sticking people on every play. And both teams were doing a lot of it. And, yes, the score was up there. But I think you have two of the most talented teams offensively. I think the tight ends for both teams are great. The wide receivers for both teams are great. The quarterbacks are great. So I don't really know what kind of defense can stop either one of these teams. But everything was perfectly matched. And the outcome decided by a kick because of the officiating flag. I mean, I can't really say that was the defining moment because Butker, if he makes the early one, totally changes the complexion of the game. You know, him missing that early field goal, Kansas City just didn't stop, and they kept coming, and the Eagles couldn't stop them.
Well, in these big games, those big mistakes are, for me, the ones that are the deciding factor. And I'm sorry to say this because I love the guy so much, but the fumble that turned into a touchdown, I mean, it didn't turn into a touchdown. It was a scoop six, and that was a 14-point swing. And when you have a lead and you're controlling the football game, those kind of plays are humongous in games like these. And I bet it is eating that dude up inside. I would not be surprised if Jalen Hurts gets some throws in or even some 600-pound squat reps today, just because that's the kind of guy he is. You could hear it in his voice in the post game of just kind of how close he was to the epitome and letting it slip through his fingers, almost figuratively, with that fumble. It's just a huge moment in the game. There was a moment where it was 24-14. I will call it a comeback, even though it felt like it was kind of a back and forth matchup. It was a 2-possession game at one point. And the calm attitude of Mahomes and all of the Kansas City Chiefs, I mean, coming out of halftime, they did not look panicked whatsoever. When it was 27-21, they knew they needed to stop. Once they got that stop, the momentum flipped into Kansas City's direction. 17-point fourth quarter. That's hard to win games when you're giving up 17 points in the fourth quarter. But I do think the Kansas City Chiefs came out and set the tempo. I think the hits that you're referring to are more from the guys in red than it was the guys in green. And there were a couple, man. There were a couple that you could feel it through the television. And I thought those were tone setters right off the bat. Philadelphia Eagles were dominant on the run game the entire season. That offensive line, the schemes that they run with the read option, you mentioned Jalen Hurts' legs. That's what makes Miles Sanders so dominant, is because linebacker safeties have to pay attention to that quarterback as well. The way Kansas City was able to shut down Gainwell, Sanders, Scott, all those running backs, that running game was nothing like it was the previous, I'd say, all weeks of the season. And you got to thank Spagnuolo. Spagnuolo's not getting a lot of shine because of those two offensive geniuses on Kansas City, but that was a hell of a job to keep that running back or the running game at bay the entire game. So hats off to the D of Kansas City. Didn't look like they played the greatest because they give up 35 points, but I thought they were bringing it, man, from the very beginning, bringing it.
And, again, we talked about this. Besides the turnovers, time of possession, 35-47 for the Eagles, 24-13. You kept Mahomes on the bench.
Great second quarter.
It was. Yeah. And, they had a 17-play drive, which set a Super Bowl record. Yeah. That's exactly what you had to do to make sure that Kansas City probably could have scored 50-plus points if they had the ball 35 minutes. Yeah. I mean, that's how good Kansas City is. With a guy with a bum leg, I mean, give the guy credit. I mean, as much as you may not like him or, like the fact that they're a little bit more boisterous than the Eagles are, honestly, I think the Kansas City fans are good fans. I think the Philadelphia fans, and I don't even think these are Eagles fans or Phillies fans or Sixers fans or Flyers fans. These are just jabronis. What you do to the city is just an act of violence. It's stupid. But as far as the Chiefs and Eagles, both teams, they have gentlemen on both sides.
Yeah.
I think Mahomes is a credit to this game. I think Hurts is even better. What a class act. All the things you got dogged out in college come back. I don't ever hear boo out of this guy. This guy is someone I'd like to hear more from, but he doesn't need to put himself out there like other people. So I have a lot of respect for Jalen Hurts, and I'm a Cowboy fan. I would love that dude to play for the Cowboys. So I just think it's the way these guys handle themselves. They know how to be professional when they have to be professional. And honestly, I think that maybe the fans need to grow up a little bit and just enjoy getting to the Super Bowl. I mean, Cincinnati didn't burn down the damn town when they lost the Super Bowl. I mean, it's just it's absurd to me that you act like that. When you're supposed to be celebrating. I would be celebrating the Eagles and their success and how good this team's going to be for the next few years.
I was just going to say for the next few years, totally. Both these teams aren't going anywhere. I mean, with who knows what Coach Bieniemy is where he's going to be next year. I would not be surprised if he's right where he is.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised.
Just get him a good raise. He deserves a raise.
Totally. And Coach Andy Reid's fighting for him in every direction.
Or Andy Reid could step aside and give him the job.
No. Why?
Why not?
Because
Andy's been around.
Yeah, but no. I mean, that would no. No. Sorry.
I disagree. I think Andy Reid, he had 50 years in Philadelphia, and he's had a bunch of years in Kansas City. Time to give somebody else a job.
No way. The guy's looking like he's going to be one of the best NFL coaches in the history of the game. Bieniemy's probably looking at the Colts or the Cardinals, and unfortunately, the Colts are looking at the offensive coordinator of the Eagles, and the defensive coordinator of the Cardinals, or the defensive coordinator of the Eagles might be going to the Cardinals. So Bieniemy might be right back there calling plays with Andy Reid. But I think that the three, and I throw Patrick Mahomes in the mix, and listening to Coach Reid, he takes a lot of input from every player. It doesn't have to be Mahomes, doesn't have to be Kelsey. Linemen can draw up plays, and they entertain the idea. And I think that collaborative effort of coming up with routes, plays, different formations. They even did the merry-go-round formation down by the goal line where they all get in a circle, run around, and then explode out into their positions. Like, stuff like that is tough to find a group of people that can all be on the same page and also be inventive in what they're going to do and have fun with it. I think Bieniemy is such a big part of that recipe. And if they stick together, man, Kansas City's not going anywhere as far as the mental game goes. And they've proven it with different linemen and now with different receivers. No Tyreek Hill on this team, no problem. And I think for the Philadelphia Eagles side, everybody's young. Everybody's young. So if they can keep those core together, especially that quarterback, I think they're going to be good for a long time.
I thought Sirianni did a great job, and he had the guts to go for it on fourth down in the Super Bowl. Not a lot of coaches would do that. They'd play the percentages. They were 2 for 2 on fourth down. This guy, he's not afraid. He's confident, and he feels his team can do it. And I just you got to feel for these guys. It sucks that somebody's got to lose, but that's what it's all about. Who wins the final game of the season? And again, let's go to our pups. Puppy
they don't
pick'em.
lose.
7-0. 7-0.
Not surprised.
9-5. They picked it in favor of the Beefs, and the Beefs come out on top, 38-35. And I'm sure Vegas will be calling them soon to find out what's the magic sauce.
If I was the CT Humane Society, you can go check them out online, cthumane.org. If I was you, CT Humane Society, instead of having the great things that you do in the front of the door of when you can show up to check out all the animals, or the Fox Clinic, or how you can have some free medical for your pet, that's great and all, but in the front, I would put home of the 7-0 Super Bowl predicting pups, period. I think that right there, that big sign, maybe we get a billboard in Newington, proud home of the CT Humane Society, home of the undefeated pups from the Puppy Pick'em. I think that's the headline in Connecticut today.
UConn men laid an egg over the weekend, and the hockey team did not play well over the weekend.
Yeah.
It was a very bad weekend for men's sports at University of Connecticut. Coming up after the show, Mike Cavanaugh, he's man enough to do his show.
I love that.
Do it. Yep, 6 o'clock coming up after our show, and he'll talk about what happens from this point on with the UConn men's hockey team. But the UConn basketball team and how they played against Creighton, again, I point to having an identity. I mean, the fact that Klingon sat and only played 7 minutes in this game while Andre Jackson took 7 threes, I don't know what the identity is. I really don't. And when you only score 53 points, you're not going to win a lot of games. You score 80 points against Marquette and come back and score 53, and you're 0-18 against top 25 ranked teams on the road. I don't know. I don't know what to say. I'm not going to complain, but that's something that needs to be fixed.
Yeah, trouble getting to the line, too. They only shot 4 free throws. It was tough to see Sanogo being your leading three-point shooter, 3 for 7, that's not a good day. Like when Sanogo's your leading when Sanogo hits a couple outside shots, that's great, extends the defense. Yeah. There's easier room to work down low for whoever's down there. But it should be Hawkins and Caravan and Newton and Diarra. This should be your main three-point shooters that are taking those shots. There's a reason that they're giving them to them. But the end of the game was tough, man. I mean, the last few possessions, whether it's a turnover or a bungled possession or just the last play of I really don't know. It felt like Ezekiel Elliott playing center for the Cowboys, and like, what the hell are we doing here? A throw was into the middle of the court. We needed a quick catch and shoot for 3, and we never even touched the basketball. A tough loss because I thought the guys were playing really good, especially the first half. Very competitive basketball game. I thought they were soft on Kalkbrenner. I think they can easily push that guy around, and they were soft on Kalkbrenner. And he's back in that lineup, and they're a totally different team when he's back there. But I'm with you, man. We got a couple of bigs with some fouls to give. Yeah, Klingon, 7 boards in 7 minutes.
It's insane.
4.7 boards, 7 minutes. That's very efficient. He is getting production.
I know his average has gone down because his minutes have gone down. He was averaging over 10 points a game. Now it's like at 8 point something. But when your playing time's going from 18 minutes to 15 minutes to 10, 9, 7, if I'm Donovan Klingon, I got to be questioning what I'm doing here. What is my purpose in here? But to tell me that's not one of the best 5 guys on this UConn men's basketball team, then I'm watching a different game because that guy deserves to be starting these basketball games now. He's played over 20 games, but again, we're just howling at the moon. We really are.
When I look at the film on all these guys, I love watching these guys and trying to break down some X's and O's. But when you watch them on film and you just if you move the pieces like they were just chess pieces and you don't look at their faces, like everything looks the same. And you're like, what's the big difference? It's attitude, man. It's taking the ball to the rim. It is aggressive. Offensively and defensively, but even offensively, for 4 free throws versus 17, they had 14 personal fouls for UConn, 10 for Creighton. All that is taking the ball to the hole. Whether you're getting fouled outside and not getting those free throws, you're not being aggressive enough taking the ball to the hoop. And that's my one thing about all these guys like Sanogo, Andre Jackson, 2 culprits for me. 3 points, man. I got you. It's worth more than 2. But you two should be jamming in the faces of everybody in this league. And I don't care if you get blocked once or twice or even 5 times during a game. Keep coming at them aggressively to the rim. Those 2, Sanogo and Jackson, I have yet to see the guy to stop them. Really, like when they're taking their one dribble, power dribble to the hoop, no one wants to get in the way of that freight train. And they need to figure that out, or at least see that on film and get aggressive to the hole, and it will make these tight couple of possession basketball games be one at the free throw line where they are knocking down free throws. They got to get back there.
But tell me that you don't want somebody to protect the rim on offense. Klingon in 7 minutes had 4 offensive rebounds.
Yeah. Nobody wants to go down there.
No. And when he's on defense, nobody's going to challenge him. Nobody's coming at him. They're going to try to go around him or dish it off to somebody. So I understand that you're in a man-to-man defense and you don't think that maybe he could have covered somebody on Creighton. I get all that, but you keep losing. You keep losing, and you have not in 18 tries against top 25 teams beaten them at their place. So you can't keep going to the same offense, and that's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over and over and trying to get a different result. You're not getting a different result. Try something different. And I love what Jim Morris said during the football season. We're not here for moral victories. We're just here to win. We're here to win games. So, take that to the bank. This is a very good team. They just, at executing whatever they're trying to do in practice, it's not carrying over to the game.
I think they got a playoff game coming up this weekend. Seton Hall to UConn. Now, Seton Hall, 15-11, 8-7 in the conference, same record conference play. And I know that looking at the overall record, we are better than Seton Hall. But in the world of popularity, in the popularity contest to get you to the big prom, the big dance at the end of the year, it's going to come down to who you beat, when you beat them, where you beat them at. And if Seton Hall, who is in Joe Lunardi's last 4 out, the 6th place team in this conversation in the Big East, if Seton Hall comes to your place and gets a win, I don't care if it's by 1 with the last second on the clock, that is going to be a big pimple on the top of your nose when we're trying to pick the belle of the ball to see who's going to be at the prom. And right now, I know they're ranked in the top 25. But if you can't beat a top 25 team, if you cannot win road basketball games, maybe you get in. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're NIT bound. But if you get in, you're not going to get a high rank, or nobody's going to be impressed with the resume that you're putting out since really January 1st, 2023.
Agreed. Let's talk some more about the Chiefs and their victory, and let's talk about some of the commercials and some of the other fun stuff that happened at the Super Bowl, including Rihanna is one of the gutsiest pregnant women I've ever seen in my life. Yeah. And we'll talk about her as well, and Mahomes with another MVP trophy going back to his home. It's the Rob Dibble Show with Ben Darnell on your afternoon drive. Kurt Kaplan on the ones and twos. It's the hangover Monday after the Super Bowl, but you know what, people? Spring training starts in a week. We'll be right back on the Rob Dibble Show.